We're on. There we go again. So we are back, episode 11. We're thundering through. We're basically podcast pros now.
Yeah, completed it. Yeah.
We've got it. Like, we might as well stop now. We went above average at episode 6. We had an absolute shocker on episode 9 where we basically just talked bollocks because we were very tired. And like, I feel like we've hit peak podcast. Like, we can't get any better now.
I've never been this far above average at anything. Other than weight, potentially.
Yeah, correct. Same. Like, I mean, I'm far above average weight. I think I'm above average strong. I think that's a unit of measurement we can use.
Yes, that's true. I think you're probably like coming up to close to like twice average weight. Would that be fair to say? I think
maybe I'm 140 kilos, pretty much on the nose.
I think it's fair to say like the average bloke probably weighs somewhere between 70 and 80, 85 kilos.
What's the average weight of a man? Hold on. Average. Yeah. Of
male human.
Adult man. There we go. They did it in pounds. The average American man, 20 years old and up, weighs 197 pounds.
Yeah, it's 90 kilos.
That's quite a lot.
See, the average man in the UK, apparently, is 83.6.
That's quite interesting. See, we started out. I didn't anticipate for this to be that interesting so early on. But
no, nor me. And I'm not sure it is, but we're interested. You're twice the average woman. I mean, before anyone
I'm 2 times bigger than your average woman.
Before anyone gets suffragette on me, I mean twice the weight of an average woman. Not you are twice the person that the average woman is, because you're not.
Yeah, that's a shame you have it hard to go down.
Yeah.
I mean, see. Now I know that's the thing. I almost want to target myself to get twice the weight of the average man. That'll make me 167 kilos.
Slippery slope, because when you stop, you want to be the weight of the average gorilla then. And then
twice the weight of the average white rhino.
Yeah, and then you quickly become a Channel 4 documentary and then you die. You best not do that.
Yeah, but then I'll be famous and it'll be fine. I'll have to do like that guy did. Do you remember that trainer years ago that did fit to fat to fit?
Yeah.
Remember that? I'll be like that dickhead.
But he's still here. You're fit to fat to dead, and then you don't get to
I'd die 100%. But I'd die at, I don't know, how much is a rhino?
You don't get to enjoy it though, do you? It's like Elvis at the end of his life. Like, he just got fat and then died, and you'd never got to actually live after that.
This is weirdly the second conversation I've had, literally this week, and it's only Tuesday, about Elvis dying. I had a chat yesterday with one of my clients about how Elvis was allegedly found eating a burger on the toilet and died.
Yeah, did you not know that?
I kind of did, but I just thought it was like a bit of a myth.
No, fact.
Who knew? Well, you, clearly. I didn't, and many other people. But
yeah. You could go that way as well. That's public health warning for the podcast.
100%, yeah. It is plausible. Basically, I think the moral of that is don't take your burger to the toilet and then you'll be all right.
Yeah. Both of those things are enjoyable on their own. They're separate entities. Why combine?
There is too much of a good thing, definitely.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are.
That wasn't the topic.
3 minutes in. 3 minutes in, and we've lost it already. Excellent. So, we were speaking briefly off camera before I hit record. I had a couple of questions from people this week, and things. I had sort of 3 good ones, but we're not going to get them all covered off. We're going to try and keep this one sort of snappy a day. But ones that I wanted to kind of go through. Someone asked me about sort of comfort foods for recovery. So the sort of background to that is, they've been pretty diligent all lockdown since March, since we were first sort of put in with their training and exercise and food and that sort of thing. Like, really trying to keep to a routine, and it sort of half helps them through. But now they're at a point where, the usual chicken, rice and broccoli just ain't quite cutting the mustard, and they're looking for sort of comfort foods that are going to help them with their recovery, because they're struggling a bit now, because we've been in this nearly a year. So I think comfort foods are an important part of just sort of getting people through things. And obviously everyone likes their, mine happens to be really buttery mashed potato. It's awesome. But not so fantastic if you're trying to watch bits and you have that all the time. So I think that'd be a good one. You can kind of cover through what's good to eat on recoveries for make you feel good. That isn't chicken, because that gets quite tedious. So I don't really have any comfort foods for recovery. I kind of don't. Like, my thing would be like a sort of, if I had like a pudding, like a chia pot or like a protein mousse or some sort like that. But I really don't sort of have anything. So this is very much over to you. So what would you put on the back of that?
Are we talking like recovery from a session or recovery from injury?
I imagine session. They're not injured that I know of. Although that's
okay.
Potentially I imagine it'd be the same answer, would it not? Recovering from injury. I don't think there's food would necessarily help you recover from an injury. It's just the food intake. But like recovering from a session might be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure are there any foods specifically that allow you to recover from a session. So I guess what you need to do is look at what are my requirements post-session. So you probably want something like 0.4 grams per kilogram of your body weight of protein pretty soonish after a session, and then probably again 2 or 3 hours later. So like if you're 100 kilos, which we've established you are not, you need 40 grams of protein, and then you probably need that again 2 or 3 hours afterwards. So depending on when you're planning to have your comfort food, I mean, I guess the one thing you can say is that why wait for recovery to have your comfort food? If you're going to eat something that makes you feel comfortable, you don't have to wait until you've exercised. That almost makes you feel like you've got to earn the right to have this comfort food. You absolutely don't.
Yeah.
And then in terms of carbohydrate, it depends what activity you're doing. Like if you've done an Olympic weightlifting session, you probably don't need much carbohydrates. You haven't used that much. If you're doing very long sessions or you're quite big and you have quite a lot of calories to play with, then you've got more options open to you because you can eat more calories, and that means more different types of food. So once you know those sorts of things, you can look at what you enjoy and what's comforting to you and either have it or adapt it so that it fits into. So your example of protein mousse would be great, whereas a normal mousse, the food anyway, probably won't fit into. I mean, you can eat mousses, meese.
Moose-eye, I think, is the collective name for moose. Much prefer elk.
It's a weird thing where, like, what's the plural of samurai then? Is it samaroos or something, like the opposite?
I mean, it is now, yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's a tangent. What was I saying? Yeah, so if you wanted a normal mousse or, like, some sort of other chocolate concoction, but you can't, a protein mousse would be a really nice option. If your thing is like loaded fries from somewhere, you can make your own. And you can make your own loaded fries with just a potato, an air fryer, some beef mince, and like a chili or something. Like, there is no right answer. This is basically telling you what to eat and what you enjoy, which isn't the easiest thing to do from hundreds of miles away from where you live without having met you. But yeah, my thing would be don't wait until recovery to have your comfort food. Have comfort food when you want comfort food. Primarily when you want comforting. I often want comforting after a session if the session's been particularly difficult.
I mean, you just went running, so that needs therapy, not comforting.
In the loosest of loose terms, running. I think the therapy is required once you have the idea, not once you've been. I think you need to nip it in the bud.
Someone to sit you down before you put your trainers on and go, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
What are you doing? No one's chasing you. Like, it's all good. I genuinely think, and this is going to make me sound horrendous, but I genuinely think the last time I ran was because the ice cream van was leaving. I really think that's true. I couldn't tell you the last time I've walked quite quickly with a yoke on my back, but I don't think that counts.
No, they're all called like farmers walks, aren't they? Not called runs.
Yeah, like farmers runs. Yeah,
it's not a yoke run, is it?
I got a decent head of steam up on a truck pull, but again,
pull. It's not a truck run.
No, pull. But yeah, not up for it.
I ran a little group coaching program called Habit Sprint. That was the last time I really did anything close to high intensity running, and that was just in the name of the program I ran. Yeah, well, it wasn't me running; it was just a name for a program. So that's the closest I come to running.
It's close enough. It's definitely close enough. It's like, I think it's the same mentality when you join a gym, but you don't go. But every time your membership goes out, you burn calories.
Yeah, that's true.
Definitely how it works. So the comfort food thing is, I don't know how to answer it. And like you say, I think it's if you're sort of waiting for a thing, then it almost back to the whole, we've had this conversation a bunch of times about demonizing food.
Yeah, like feeling like you have to earn it.
Sort of implying that food's bad, and it ain't, it's just food. But yeah, I think if you're sort of and again, to be completely anecdotal about, my sort of training, I've got a really sweet tooth. So for me, I like things like Hartley's do like a 10 calorie jelly pot, which per pot is normally like 3 calories, which is badass. But it's a little sweet hit at the end of a thing. No, so like a mousse, like a chocolate mousse, something like that. But actually, someone told me this ages back, and I initially thought it was grim, and it took me ages to make it. But they said like make a mousse. You get cottage cheese and whey powder, and you just fucking blitz it, like put it in a blender and mush it all together, and it makes a really nice mousse, which I thought would be horrendous. It's actually really tasty. So like little bits like that, things that you enjoy, quite low calorie, especially if you're looking like this particular individual are, they're a weight class athlete and they're quite lightweight, and they just want to stay on that even little line. So for them, there's sort of low calorie options for recovery, but recovery's.
Yeah, I think that's probably a different question. Is what are good low calorie protein snacks that I can have that will be comforting? I mean, and the part of the answer is that if it's low calorie, it probably won't be comforting.
No.
Like one of the reasons people struggle sometimes on a diet is they keep having low calorie options and just constantly and never feel satisfied. So there's obviously physiological fullness. So like I'm no longer hungry, I've eaten enough food, I am now satiated. And there's also being satisfied with food. So like having eaten something going, that was actually really satisfying. I'm now satisfied. The urge to, like you say, like my sweet tooth, I've now satisfied that. If you're constantly having low calorie food, you never feel satisfied because they're never actually as nice as the actual thing. You're probably better off having less of the thing that truly satisfies you. So like because you still end up eating more calories because you'll have like a fiber one bar, for example. It's all right. It doesn't really hit the spot. And then I've tried a jelly as well. Hasn't really worked. I've tried a Diet Coke. You try all these diet things and then you end up having the brownie, muffin, bar of chocolate anyway. So rather than try and mitigate whatever energy intake you're worried about, just have a little bit of the thing. I think it's a better skill to teach yourself to have a little bit of something and then leave it there and park it rather than constantly trying to swap out every single thing as a low calorie thing. Not that low calorie foods are bad or like diet food's bad or anything, they're not. But sometimes if you're constantly trying to use them as a crutch and you end up still eating more calories, it might be worth just trying to swap to less of the actual thing because you actually find that you are satisfied. And if you eat it mindfully and appropriately, then you'll go, actually, yeah, I've had enough of that. I've got what I wanted from it, which was satisfy this craving for something sweet or chocolatey or whatever it is. Now I'm just going to crack on eating normally again. But yes, I see it a lot. People eating 8, 9, 10 different types of diet thing in a day and just ended up not feeling any fuller and then eating the thing at the end. And they've suddenly eaten 1,000 calories when they could have just had a 200 calorie dairy milk bar and been fine.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. I hadn't thought of it that way. But yeah. And I feel like we've opened ourselves up to another straw man argument where we said, well, one time you said that low calorie stuff's fine, and now you're saying it's terrible. You need to eat everything. Oh, fuck off. That's not what I'm saying.
But in terms of low calorie stuff, there's loads of low calorie protein things. The yogurt's really good. Like so Lindal's one, that's really nice.
So which one?
I'm going to find Lindal, something like that.
No idea. I eat the Faggy, whatever it's called. That one. Fage, how do you pronounce that?
Yeah.
That one. I use that. And that's pretty tasty. And like, you can sort of put it with things. I use it quite a lot in cooking, like if I'm making sauces and stuff. Nice. And yeah, relatively low fat. Quite high protein.
There's a Lindal's one, so Indahls, Kvarg, it's called Kvarg, which sounds vaguely, I think it's Swedish. It's basically flavoured quark, which is like sort of cottage cheese sort of stuff. But they've got different flavours. They've got a white chocolate one, a raspberry one, a stracciatella one, and they're actually really nice. And they're like 17 grams of protein. So I sometimes use them as a base to then have some other nice bits as well. Not necessarily low calorie, but like one of them with some almonds, a little bit of dark chocolate, some berries. Not loads of calories, enough protein, and it's actually quite enjoyable as well.
Use that little hit. Cool, man.
In terms of recovery, I really like having things like that as a base that you can, and we spoke about this before, doing more than one habit. So if I've got a habit where I want to have some protein after training, I want to increase my fruit and veg intake, and also like a couple of other ones. So like hit a fiber intake, or I have so much fat or whatever. Something like a yogurt's really good because you can pile some berries or some bananas on. If you want to have carbs before or after, you can put some honey in it. And I'm the same with meals, in that like something like a burrito or a fajita, or they're really good bases. And that if you need to eat more, then you can chuck some sweet potatoes on, some wedges, all that sort of like rice, bread, etc. Yeah. Or you can scale them back and just have like a burrito bowl, which is just the meat and the veg. So yeah, sort of starting from foundations like a yogurt or something, and then build them out is really useful.
Cool. Yeah, man. I think the sort of the savoury side of it as well. Like, I've just rekindled a love of soup,
Yes,
which is awesome. And that's sort of more than anything because of obviously COVID rules. I'm now outside for basically all hours that are light and a couple either side that are dark. Under a gazebo behind the village hall, training people because you've got to be outside 1-to-1 in public now. So the little platform I'd set up outside my gym, not okay because it's private land. It's good. Shout out.
Not bitter about that, though, so that's fine.
Huh?
Not bitter about that.
Not a little bit. No. It's all good. I think Thames Valley Police are doing a sterling job of keeping me away from private land, and they're doing an awesome job. Thanks. But I'm there now, so I'm out, and it's fucking cold, and like soup's really comforting. So when you get in and like your hands have gone blue and you can't write a text or just about turn the hob on, like a decent thing of soup's actually quite good, and they're a piece of piss to make. You just throw things in a pot, cook it down, and smush it up. It's awesome. Yep. So yeah, the other side of that's like soup and a crusty roll, that sort of thing, and that's a really, in terms of comfort food. I don't know if it's going to help with recovery necessarily, but it's really quite comforting. And it's soup fills a hole. I read something a while back, and again, you might tell me this is false, and it's probably I read it a long time ago. But liquid stays in your stomach for a little bit longer than solids. It doesn't break down so quick, apparently. So you feel a little bit fuller for longer when you're on liquids. So soup is a little bit more satiating than others. It sort of keeps you fuller for longer. I don't know how true that is. I heard of a thing, and I don't know. I feel quite full after a bowl of soup, and sort of stays there for a bit. So again, completely anecdotally, that might be a thing.
I think, I had a chat with a client this week actually who was struggling at lunch and also struggling to hit fruit and veg in the day. I said have like a 200-calorie soup. You're guaranteed to feel full, and it's something I do quite a lot. I have soup first, then have my lunch. I do think it makes you feel fuller. I don't know what the mechanism is necessarily, or whether it's that one, because obviously your stomach can stretch a little bit, and when it does, that gives a signal to everything else that you're full, basically. And by doing that with liquid, that's one of the reasons people say, if you drink enough, then you won't feel as hungry. To a point, it just sort of works. It stretches your stomach a bit, and there's mechanoreceptors in the stomach which then go, actually, look, we're full. And then you stop eating because you feel full. It might not last for as long as if you actually were full, but there's probably something there. So yeah, soup's an absolutely game changer, I think.
Game changer. It's quite new, soup. It's quite a newfangled invention.
I've only heard about it the past 2 or 3 months, really.
There's this company called Heinz, and they do these things called Big Soup. They're amazing.
There's this new Instagram page. I think it was the Women's Institute or something like that. And they started doing these soups.
They make a mean Victoria sponge as well, which incidentally makes a terrible soup, but it's a lovely cake.
They could probably come back now, because they were during the war when everything was rationed and people weren't allowed out. It's not.
Hey, WI, this is their calling.
Yeah, I think so. This is their time.
Bring back Victoria's.
Boris has got a membership, and that's why he's doing everything that he is.
Imagine Boris in the WI. That'd be a thing. Oh, that just implies that he put a wig on. That's horrible.
Ooh, I'm saying that. I don't know if he grew it out a little bit.
Could he grow his hair out more? That absolute flock of seagulls that he's got going on. In fairness, the guy's got a pretty tough job to do at the minute. I don't know why we're so obsessed with the fact he hasn't brushed his hair. He's probably got better things to be doing at the moment. Bless him.
Yeah, but he doesn't seem to be doing them, so he could at least brush his hair.
Yeah, potentially. Anyway, this could go down a long old rabbit hole, couldn't it? Yeah. Let's talk politics on this above average podcast that we've got going on. That'd be horrendous. Maybe we could do that on our Instagram Live when we eventually get around to doing that.
That'd be
how many people we could upset.
Oh, loads. So many people without trying.
So many.
If you let me try.
You don't even need to try. All you need to do is mention a party that someone else doesn't like, and you're bound to offend someone.
My birthday party, no one likes that because they never turn up. There's a party straight away.
Nice. Mate, I thought I got away with it last year. I was all smug. My birthday was before lockdown, so I got a thing, and I was all smug thinking, yeah, this is great. No one makes their birthdays after me, and I think this year I'm going to be stuck in it again. So again, that implies I did the first one, but I didn't. It's 1st of March, so we're definitely going to be locked in, 100%. But
mine was the first day of the November lockdown.
Nice.
The 5th of November. I couldn't go anywhere, do anything.
Nice.
First day lockdown, so
yeah,
that was great.
I've got lockdown birthday this year. 33. What's that about?
Yeah, it's old, isn't it?
Isn't it? I'm we probably won't even get to episode 20 of this. I'll be dead before then. Old age will get me.
I thought so. Yeah.
I don't know.
But they'll probably keep you in a museum because of your weight. Like,
You know what? So there's a guy that I'm going to get on for a podcast soon and just interview the guy because he's got a hell of a story. So I'm going to cheat on you, but I'm telling you about it.
that's fine.
It's that one, Andy Callard, who is a weightlifting coach with some credence behind him. He's a really good coach and he's got a story. But he runs Europa Weightlifting Club over in Dartford. And there was a thing a while back where basically if you walked into his gym at 150 kilos, he'd give you a certificate. Which I think is amazing. Because how many people could say they've walked around at 150 kilos? And there's a little bit in the back of my head that kind of went, huh. And I went, no, don't do that. There's no need. But yeah, there's a little bit. Anyway, we'll get one more real quick fire one in because we've tapped on this before. I forget which episode it was now, but I'll try and dig that out and put it in the comments or the description for this to which one it was. It won't be hard to find. I'll try and do that. If I don't, just go back and listen to them. It'll be there somewhere. But it's calorie deficit and strength gains. So can you get stronger whilst in a calorie deficit? And, we spoke about this some time ago. And the answer is yes. We kind of went into a little bit of a sort of what's, why's and wherefore, like calories don't equal strength. That kind of strength comes from very broad strokes, progressive overload through your training. I think we kind of settle on so long as you're getting the sort of nutrients in, get your protein intakes and that sort of stuff, you're probably going to get stronger, and that can be within a calorie deficit. And I think surplus would just make it maybe a little easier. I think it was kind of how we'd settled on it last time. But I think just to sort of revisit that and delve into a little bit more detail on that would be handy. Mm-hmm. My thought is I don't know, if you're in a calorie deficit, you're probably trying to strip weight, which is the only reason I think you would be in a deficit. And we spoke about this a bunch of times. Commit to it or don't do it. That was a t-shirt when it dicking around in a deficit. So that. Yeah. So it's kind of a case, if you're doing that, you're probably not going to lose an awful lot of strength in the month or the 2 months, whatever it is you're going to be doing that. And if you're still training at that same time, then crack on. And then by the time you're out of your deficit and you've done your thing and you've hit your sort of length of cut you're going to be doing, firing straight back into things again and sticking on your maintenance calories, you're probably not going to notice a hell of a lot of difference in your strength. Aside from the fact, if you've lost a lot of weight, things like deadlifts might suffer a bit because a little bit of mass and stuff. But I don't think it's going to make a hell of a lot of difference, really.
Yeah, I think my view on it is you can get stronger in a deficit, but you shouldn't be trying to. Is probably it. So, like, if you're in a deficit, it needs to be for as short a period as possible, probably. And the thing is that obviously it's a sliding scale. A deficit isn't just a one thing. It's like, if it's a 5% deficit, you might not notice. If it's a 10% deficit, you might start feeling a little bit more fatigued outside of sessions. 15%, and these are just arbitrary numbers, this isn't a fact, but like 15-20%, you're going to start struggling to fuel your sessions properly. Beyond that, and you are going to start having an effect on your strength. I mean, there are loads of different things that we can impact with strength with nutrition. So obviously, if we don't put enough fuel in, then you can't train at a high enough intensity. We know that if you don't hit your numbers, then you're not going to get stronger because you're not hitting the numbers to get stronger. If you're not recovering, you're too sore to do your next session or to do it as well as you could, you're not going to hit your numbers, you're not going to get any stronger.
Yeah.
So outside of just the signaling in terms of what's going on in the body, how many calories your body needs to get stronger and get more muscle, there's also like the input bit rather than just the output, the input in what we're putting into the session. If you can't put everything you can into the session, you're not going to get any stronger. So there's two sort of different things we're looking at there in terms of, does it affect the output? Probably, but not massively, not for a short period of time anyway, but it probably will affect the input. But if you're a weight category athlete, the priority is making weight when you're cutting. And so you need to do it for as long as you need to cut weight for. And this comes back to, if you're close enough to your weight category, it shouldn't matter too much. Like, you shouldn't be dieting for longer than like 12 weeks, 15 weeks, absolute max. And then you should have enough strength. And at the start of that diet, you can carry on training and being quite a low deficit because you've got so long to diet for. It shouldn't affect your training when you are peaking. And then by the time that you're coming close to maybe needing to go in a bigger deficit to really make weight, training is tapered anyway, so it shouldn't really affect your strength. You're not training to get stronger. You're training to keep the skill and then compete. So You can get stronger in a deficit, but you shouldn't be trying to. You should be trying to maintain your strength. You should be gaining. You should be in a surplus for as long as you can to gain strength. Deficit for as little time as you can to keep strength, and then make weight, and then compete, and then do it all again.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, again, I feel like this should mirror what we said the first time around when we had this conversation. Yeah, like it's. I don't think from a kind of point of view of where your strength would go, as in that use it or lose it principles, as it were. I really don't think it's going to go that far. But also, we've had this chat before, and especially through like the start of lockdown, strength comes back real fast, like really, really fast. Whatever strength you lose through lockdown, through a deficit, whatever it is you're doing, if you're not training to the same level, intensity, whatever you want to call it, when you get back to that, it's all going to come firing back pretty damn fast. You kind of alluded to it there, like skill's going to disappear a lot faster than strength will, and that's an awful lot harder to get back.
Yeah,
it comes a question of focus. I agree completely. It's sort of, if you're trying to cut down to a weight, fine, do that, but keep the skill high and understand strength might sacrifice a little, but it will come back again pretty damn quick.
One interesting point on that, in that when so if you're 16 weeks out for comp, let's say, when do we start putting a deficit in, and how long for, and how big the deficit? And there's sort of two trains of thought at the start anyway. So one is that you diet pretty slowly. Obviously, if you're training really hard 16 weeks out, which you still will be, then we want to give it enough calories so that you're training when strength's still important. You're still training. You're in a bit of a deficit, but you've got enough there to crack on and still do your training. And then we put a bigger deficit later on when the training is not as bad. You can lose more weight. You can afford to feel a bit more lethargic. So that's one way of doing it. The other way is that we know having more muscle mass is generally beneficial for most strength sports. Like powerlifting, it's pretty much perfect correlation between who has the most muscle mass, who has the biggest lifts.
Who lifted the heaviest, yeah.
And we know that to muscle mass, we need a stimulus. It's the most important thing, is training stimulus. And then everything else comes out after that. Like if I give you loads of calories and protein, you don't get huge unless you're training. It'd be great, but I'm not that important. So there's an argument that you should really have your biggest deficit when the training stimulus is highest, because then you'll retain more muscle, because that's when your training stimulus is high. And then when you get to having less of a stimulus, if you went into a big deficit when stimulus is low, you're going to lose more muscle mass because you've not got much of a stimulus, and also you're in a big deficit, which we know isn't good for muscle mass retention. So there's sort of two ways of looking at it. Do we go for a big deficit at the start, affect training potentially, but keep muscle mass, or do we go for a big deficit at the end? And it's an interesting one. I'm not telling you I have the answer. I think it depends on the sport. Powerlifting, I'd be inclined to go harder early on. Olympic weightlifting, where muscle mass probably isn't the biggest determinant, I'd probably do things a little bit more differently. But it's an interesting one. It probably comes down to the individual as well. The thing is, most people listening to this aren't professionals in their sport.
Yeah,
they are passionate amateurs. And then the whole lifestyle thing, what they've got going on with work life, that all comes into the decision for me if I was going to tell you what to do. That's a very long-winded answer, but there are a lot of different things to consider, really. It depends.
It depends. I think that's the first "it depends" we've said in this whole call. We've just sort of skirted around the "it depends" answer without saying it depends. You go, oh, sorry, it depends, fans. You've only had one drink in this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my sort of thing is, if you're 16 weeks out of a comp, if you're a weight class athlete, you probably hover somewhere around your weight anyway. Inverted commas, probably should do.
Yeah.
So if you're finding that you've got to cut 5 kilos to get to your class, you're in the wrong class, or you've fucked up somewhere down the line, like you've just gone on a bit of a thing. But you should be kind of within, I guess, about 2 kilos of your class at any given point. If you're a bit fluffier in your off season, then so be it. Everybody is, but you should be able to nip that down pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I tend to err on the side of get it off you, and then we've got the next bit. So we can strip down that little bit of weight in your first month, whilst sort of working your skill, finding some weaknesses and that sort of thing. We've got the next 3 months to hit and get you as strong as fucking possible before your competition. And that's kind of how I would do it. So I err on the side of do it earlier and then hit your training.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's quite psychologically, it's quite powerful to be able to eat to a competition rather than think, shit me, I've got all this training and I've got to starve myself. I think
100%. That's the biggest. That's the biggest thing in my head for doing that way. Because then you've got that initial shithouse bit at the start where you're hungry and you're trying to train. then like you say, you've got a good 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks leading into your competition where you're full, you've got a good amount of food in your belly, you feel good at training, you're feeling strong, you feel heavy enough to support things. I think that's a big thing. So I do it that way for that reason. Whether that's right or wrong, I have no idea. But that seems to work for the most part. And until I find something that doesn't work with, then, there's another way we can try it. But I think it all sort of veers around staying near your weight class.
That in strength sports, you've got 2 hours to weigh in. That's huge. That's the biggest thing. You're not going to, if you have to starve yourself or restrict your fluid intake in days before, you've done something wrong and it's not going to go that well, really. I mean, and I say that loosely, you can restrict both those things, but if you're having to do a big restriction, I've worked with people where I've restricted both those things and it's fine, but you need to know how much you can restrict them by and when and etc. So
if you're trying to sweat out half a kilo before you're weighing in your
exactly, yeah. If you're trying to chug 6 Lucozade Sports to try and get everything back, you probably messed up.
Yeah,
and you're going to shit yourself. Just
probably.
Probably
it's annoying when you put your singlet on. Like, if there's one bit of advice I can give anyone, it's shit before you put your singlet on. Like, them things are a pain in the ass. But yeah,
girls do it on a night out where they wear things that someone's got to help them get off to.
Yeah,
when you add alcohol into that mix.
I used to be a doorman, so like usually all that is hilarious.
Yeah,
hilarious. That's another story for another time.
That's why you go jeans and a nice top. That's our advice for today.
Jeans and a nice top, nice frock. But yeah, so cool. I think that about wraps up that, which is awesome. Again, just a little bit of fluff, but there's a couple of questions people are asking about, so we can answer them, which is all good. Just before we do go, I am currently in the throes of organising with Mr. Charlie about doing a seminar workshop type of thing for some of the members at the gym. So all members of Redbeard will get a discount on that seminar. If you're a non-member, it'll be a little bit more hike, so you'll have to pay £1,000 for the ticket.
Worth it.
100%. And of that, Charlie gets 20 quid, and I take the rest because I'm doing all the work. Frankly, I'm the talent here.
Yeah,
that's it. I haven't worked out the prices yet, so that's bollocks. But anyways, we'll be doing that at some point. So by the time we get on next week, we'll have a date nailed in the diary. Look out on our Instagrams. I'm sure we'll do some bits and pieces. Now that through. And then that could be cool. So if you're curious or want to learn more about sort of sports, performance, nutrition, that kind of thing, Charlie's, I've said it before, he's quite good at his job. So we'll get him in to do something with the club and anybody that fancies it as well. Most likely it will be Zoom because live is tricky at the minute because there's a bit of a bug floating around. You might have heard of it. It's called the common cold. So we'll get him on and we'll do that, and that should be cool. So look out for that. Look out for some details on our Instagrams. Charlie is on Instagram at @cvnutrition_. I am at Night Strength or at Redbeard Barbell Club. And that's about it. So yeah, awesome. Get your questions in for next time. I'm sure we'll delve into a little bit more. I did have another question that we'll leave until next week because that's a bit of a longer answer on. But yeah, until next time, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.
No drama. See you later. See you, man.